Is a high protein, low carb diet the way to go? Hear me out. The answer is no. I'm going to tell you why. Let me explain why before you start typing, because this is important to understand. Because you might actually be doing this indirectly and not even know that you're doing it. When we say high protein, what most people are talking about is relative to the amount of carbohydrates that they're eating. So if they're eating 90 grams of protein and only 20 to 25 grams of carbohydrate, that's a high relative protein diet relative to the carbohydrates. But if you're eating 90 grams of protein and 200 grams of carbohydrate, that's a low protein diet relative to the carbohydrate. But eating high protein is not good for your kidneys, and it's a waste of money. Let me explain why. All of us have a certain protein requirement in order to maintain our muscle and our bone and to help with hormones as well as using fats. Many times when you eat certain foods, when you're eating protein, you're eating fat as well, particularly if it's animal protein. Don't eat more protein than your body can deal with. In general, you'll find that people will say 1.6 grams of protein for every 2.2 kilograms of body weight. And you're like, what does that mean? Nobody really knows what that means. Essentially, it's about 3/4 of a gram for your body weight, which means a 150-pound person is probably going to need around 100 grams of protein per day. Some people, such as Barry Sears, will go as far as calculating how much grams of protein you need relative to not just your body weight, but your lean tissue. A good example of that would be a person that's 150 pounds and 10% body fat compared to a person who's 150 pounds, 30% body fat. The person that has a lower percent body fat has a higher amount of lean tissue and thus would require more grams of protein. Lastly, depending on your activity level, if you're a serious bodybuilder and you're training every day with weights and you're heavily working out, then you're going to require more protein than someone who sits at a computer all day and watches TikTok and YouTube videos. That was a joke, by the way. I don't mean you, I mean other people. But exercise increases the amount of protein that we need. Some people will need 1 gram of protein for every pound of lean tissue. So a person who is 150 pounds, let's say they're 10% body fat, they need 135 grams of protein per day. Whereas if they were not exercising, they may only need 3/4 of a gram for every lean tissue, meaning that they would probably need somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 to 100 grams of protein. So you see, this protein requirement isn't a simple number, but depends upon your activity levels, your body weight, as well as your body lean mass. That's important. So for a person like myself, who I require just a little bit less than 100 grams of protein, so let's do 90 grams of protein, anything above 90 grams is actually too much protein for my body to deal with. It's not good for the kidneys, and you're just eating too much food. So a high protein diet, which by definition of high protein means you're eating too much protein, in that case, anything above 90 grams of protein is too much for my body. Likewise, anything less than 90 grams would be too little for my body. I would have a hard time maintaining my body mass, my muscle, my bone, etc. No one's promoting that you eat too little protein. No one's promoting that you eat too much protein. The real thing that we should be discussing is, can you get a protein adequate diet? And that is where the trouble starts, because figuring out how much protein you need is a little bit of a science and a little bit of an art. We can call this the Goldilocks diet. Not too much, not too little. But that's important. So when you say you're eating a high protein, low carb diet, that's really relative to each other. We wouldn't want to eat too little protein, but we wouldn't want to eat too much protein. We don't want to eat too little carbohydrates, but we don't want to eat too much carbohydrates. That is my take on a high protein, low carb diet. If you have any comments or would like to tell me your story, let me know in the comment section down below.